Julian Cross proposed to the wrong sister on a night when champagne flowed like promises, and Lena Hart watched from the shadows, heart breaking in a silence no one heard. The ballroom glittered with Manhattan's elite, 1,000 guests dressed in designer everything, celebrating Julian's latest acquisition, a media empire that made him the youngest billionaire to control 3 continents worth of content. And there, under crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes, he knelt before Evelyn Hart. Beautiful, magnetic Evelyn, the woman who commanded every room she entered. The woman Julian had courted for 6 months with helicopter rides and front-row fashion shows and declarations that made tabloids swoon. The woman who was Lena's sister. Evelyn Hart, Julian's voice carried across the ballroom, confident and clear. You are everything I never knew I needed. Marry me. The crowd erupted. Evelyn's gasp was perfect, surprised but not shocked, delighted but not desperate. She said yes with tears that caught the light just right. And Lena, quiet, invisible Lena, slipped out the side door before anyone noticed she'd been there at all. She made it to the street before the sobs came. Stupid, so stupid to love a man who'd never looked at her twice, who saw her only as Evelyn's shadow, the boring sister who preferred books to parties and silence to spectacle. But Lena had loved Julian from the first moment she'd met him. 3 months before the proposal, before the headlines and the courtship, when Evelyn had dragged her to a charity gala and abandoned her the moment someone more important appeared. Lena had been hiding on a balcony, escaping the noise, when Julian found her. Not a fan of crowds, he'd asked. She looked up at him, this man whose face was on every magazine, whose name moved markets, and said the truth. Not a fan of pretending. He'd laughed, actually laughed. Finally, someone honest. They'd talked for 2 hours, about books he'd read and she'd analyzed, about the pressure of living up to expectations, about feeling lonely in rooms full of people. And when Evelyn had found them, Julian's attention had shifted. Of course it had. Evelyn was everything Lena wasn't, confident where she was cautious, dazzling where she was dim. And Julian had looked at Evelyn the way men always did. Like she was the sun, and he'd been living in darkness. So Lena had stepped back, watched them fall into a relationship that looked perfect from every angle, attended family dinners where Julian held Evelyn's hand and never noticed Lena remembered how he took his coffee, smiled through engagement planning while her heart cracked with every detail. And now it was done. Julian had chosen, and Lena needed to let go. But 3 weeks later, everything changed. The scandal broke on a Tuesday. Julian's CFO had been embezzling for years, falsifying reports, creating phantom profits while the company hemorrhaged money. The media empire Julian had just purchased was worthless, debts hidden behind shell companies and fraudulent accounting. In 24 hours, Julian Cross went from golden boy to cautionary tale. The headlines were vicious: billionaire fraud, emperor has no clothes, Cross's empire built on lies. His stock plummeted, investors fled, business partners released statements distancing themselves. And Evelyn called off the engagement. Lena found out from her sister's Instagram post, a carefully worded statement about needing time to reflect and wishing Julian well, that screamed I'm abandoning ship. She called Evelyn immediately. What are you doing? Being practical, Evelyn's voice was cool. Julian's company is collapsing. He might lose everything. I'm not signing up for that. You were going to marry him. I was going to marry a billionaire, not a scandal. A pause. Don't judge me, Lena. You don't understand how these things work. I understand loyalty. Loyalty doesn't pay for the life I want. Evelyn hung up. And Lena sat there stunned. Her sister, the woman who'd spent 6 months playing the devoted fiancé, had walked away the moment Julian's fortune was questioned. Which meant he was alone. Lena knew she should stay away. This wasn't her business. Julian had chosen Evelyn, and Evelyn had made her choice. But the thought of him facing this crisis alone, betrayed by his CFO, abandoned by his fiancée, drowning in accusations, made her chest ache. So she did something stupid. She went to him. Julian's penthouse looked the same, all glass and steel and Manhattan views, but the man who answered the door was a stranger. Hollow-eyed, unshaven, wearing sweatpants like armor against the world. "Lena," he blinked like she was a mirage. "What are you doing here?" "I heard what happened. I wanted to check on you." "I'm fine." "You look terrible." His laugh was broken. "Your sister said the same thing, right before she left." Lena's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she made the smart choice. Julian stepped back, letting her in. Everyone is. Investors, partners, friends, they're all running. Can't blame them. Who wants to be associated with the guy who got played by his own CFO? You didn't get played, you were betrayed. Same result. He poured himself a drink, didn't offer her one. "I'm going to lose everything, Lena. The company, the reputation, probably this place. Everything I built for 10 years, gone." "Then you'll build again." "With what? No one will touch me now, I'm toxic." He downed the drink. "Your sister knew that, that's why she left." "My sister's an idiot." Julian looked at her, really looked. "You came all the way here to tell me that." "I came because I know what it's like to feel invisible, and I didn't want you to feel alone." Something shifted in his expression. "You're not invisible." "I am to most people." "Not to me." His voice was quiet. That night on the balcony, that was the most honest conversation I'd had in years, and I thought about it for weeks after, wondered if I'd imagined how easy it was to talk to you. Lena's heart stopped. "Then why?" "Because Evelyn walked in and she was everything I thought I wanted. Beautiful, confident, impressive. The kind of woman that makes sense for someone like me." He set down the glass. "But you know what I've realized these past 3 weeks?" "What?" "Impressive doesn't mean real, and the woman I thought I wanted disappeared the moment things got hard." Julian moved closer. "But you're here. Why?" "Because I care about you. Even though I chose your sister." "Especially because of that." Lena's voice cracked. "Because watching you with her hurt every single day, but seeing you like this hurts more." Julian stared at her. "You have feelings for me." It wasn't a question. Lena could have denied it, should have denied it, but she was so tired of hiding. "Yes," she whispered, "I have since that night on the balcony." "But it doesn't matter. You love Evelyn." "No," the word was firm, final. "I love the idea of Evelyn, the image, but you." He reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're the one I should have been paying attention to all along." "Don't," Lena stepped back. "Don't say things like that because you're hurt and I'm here. I'm not a consolation prize." "You're not." "I am. Right now I am, because you didn't see me until Evelyn left." Tears burned her eyes. "And I deserve better than being the second choice." Julian's face crumpled. "You're right, God, you're right, I'm sorry. I didn't come here for an apology. I came because you needed someone." She moved toward the door. "But I can't be that person if you're just going to confuse gratitude with feelings." "Lena, wait." But she was already gone. The next 3 months were brutal. Julian's company collapsed. Bankruptcy, lawsuits, assets seized. He lost the penthouse, the cars, the trappings of wealth he'd spent a decade accumulating. And through it all, Lena stayed away. It killed her, checking news articles, seeing photos of him looking more worn down each week, knowing he was facing this alone. But she'd meant what she said. She wasn't a consolation prize. And until Julian figured out what he actually wanted, until he proved he saw her for who she was, not just who was available, she couldn't go back. Evelyn, meanwhile, had moved on spectacularly. New boyfriend within a month, richer than Julian had been. She posted photos of European vacations and designer shopping, never mentioning her former fiancé. "Does it bother you," their mother asked over dinner one night, "that she's moved on so quickly?" "No," Lena said honestly. "It confirms I was right about her." "She says you're judging her." "I am, and I'm okay with that." Her mother smiled sadly. "You loved him, didn't you, Julian?" Lena's throat tightened. "Yes." "Does he know?" "He knows, but it doesn't matter." "Why not?" Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel, and hit that subscribe button. Because love isn't enough. He needs to choose me for the right reasons. Not because he's alone, not because Evelyn left, but because he actually sees me. And if he does, then I'll move on too, eventually. Lena stabbed at her salad, just not as fast as Evelyn. But 3 months after the collapse, Julian showed up at Lena's apartment. Not at the penthouse. He'd lost that. At her tiny one-bedroom in Brooklyn that cost less per month than his old wine budget. He looked different, thinner, older, but somehow more solid, more real. "Hi," he said when she opened the door. "Hi. I've been rebuilding." His voice was rough. "Got a job at a startup, junior position. It's humbling, but it's honest work." "That's good." "I sold everything I had left, paid back as much debt as I could. It'll take years to clear it all, but I'm trying." "Julian." "I'm not here to ask you to save me," he interrupted. "I'm not here because I'm desperate or alone or looking for comfort. I'm here because I spent 3 months learning who I am when everything's stripped away. And you know what I found?" Lena's heart hammered. "What?" "That the person I think about when I'm at my lowest is you. Not Evelyn, not some fantasy of who I thought I should be with. You." He stepped closer. "You, who came to check on me when everyone else ran. You, who called me out when I tried to use you as a band-aid. You, who deserved better than I was capable of giving 3 months ago." And now her voice shook. "Now I'm still broke, still rebuilding, still have a reputation that's toxic, but I'm better than I was, more honest, more aware of what actually matters." Julian's eyes held hers. "And if you'll let me, I'd like to prove that I see you, really see you, not because Evelyn left, not because you were there, but because you're the person I should have chosen from the beginning." Lena wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But fear held her back. What if you're wrong? What if you rebuild and realize you miss that life? Miss women like Evelyn? "I won't." "You can't know that." "I can because I've had that life, and it was empty." Julian reached for her hand. "Lena, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not even asking you to be my girlfriend yet. I'm asking if I can take you to dinner. Get to know you without the pressure of who I thought I had to be. Let you see who I actually am when I'm not performing. And if I say no," his smile was sad, "then I'll respect that, and I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I missed my chance with the only woman who ever saw me for real." Lena looked at him. This man who'd broken her heart by choosing her sister, who'd lost everything and somehow found himself, who was standing in her doorway asking not for redemption, but for a chance. She should protect herself, should say no, should let him prove himself from a distance. But Lena had spent her whole life in the background, playing it safe, choosing protection over possibility. And she was tired of it. "Okay," she said softly, "dinner." Julian's eyes went bright. "Yeah. But Julian, if you hurt me." "I won't, I swear. I'll spend every day proving you weren't the second choice. You were the right choice I was too blind to see." Their first date was at a diner. Not some Michelin-starred restaurant. Not a place with photographers and society pages. Just a 24-hour diner in Queens where the coffee was terrible and the pancakes were perfect. Julian told her about the startup, about living in a studio apartment with roommates, about taking the subway and budgeting groceries and learning to live on 40,000 a year. It's humbling, he admitted, going from private jets to public transit, but also freeing. No one cares who I am. I'm just another guy trying to make rent. Do you miss it? Lena asked. The wealth. Sometimes. Mostly I miss the security, but you know what I don't miss? He looked at her. The performance. Pretending to be someone I thought I should be. Dating women who loved my portfolio more than my personality. Evelyn loved you. Evelyn loved what I represented. There's a difference. Julian reached across the table, took her hand. You know what I realized? What? That night on the balcony, you asked me about the last book I read for pleasure, not business, not to impress someone, just because I wanted to. His thumb traced circles on her palm, and I couldn't remember, because I'd spent so long being who I thought a billionaire should be that I'd forgotten who I actually was. Who are you? I'm still figuring that out, but I know I'm someone who wants to be with you, who wants to hear your opinions on terrible movies and listen to you talk about whatever book you're reading, who wants to build something real instead of something impressive. Lena's throat tightened. What if your company recovers? What if you become wealthy again? Then I'll be a different kind of wealthy than I was before, the kind that remembers what matters. Julian squeezed her hand. But that's years away. Right now, I'm a guy working 60 hours a week to clear debt. Is that enough? It's more than enough. They dated slowly, carefully. Dinners at diners, walks through Brooklyn, movie nights in Lena's tiny apartment where they argued about plot holes and fell asleep on her couch. Julian met her friends, grad students and artists and people who didn't care that he used to be a billionaire. He fit in better than Lena expected, laughed more, relaxed into being just Julian instead of Julian Cross, media mogul. And Lena watched him become someone real. 2 months in, Evelyn called. I heard you're seeing Julian, she said without preamble. Yes. That's unexpected. Is it? Lena kept her voice neutral. You left him, I care about him, it's pretty straightforward. I left him because he lost everything. And I stayed because I saw who he was without it. Lena paused. We're different that way. Silence. Then, are you trying to punish me? This isn't about you, Evelyn. For once, this is about me. Lena's voice was firm. I spent my whole life watching you shine while I stayed in the background, but I'm done competing. I'm not with Julian to hurt you or prove something. I'm with him because I love him. You love him. I do, I have since before you noticed him, and he loves me now. Not the idea of me, not because I was convenient, but actually me. More silence. Does he make you happy? Evelyn's voice was quieter now, almost vulnerable. Yes. Then I guess I can't be mad. A pause, even if it stings a little. I'm not sorry for that. I know, and I don't expect you to be. Evelyn exhaled. For what it's worth, he's better with you. I saw pictures. He looks lighter, more real. He is real now, that's the point. Then I hope it works out, I really do. Evelyn hung up. And Lena sat there surprised, not by forgiveness, they weren't there yet, but by acknowledgement, by her sister seeing her for the first time. It was something. 6 months after their first date, Julian's startup went public. Not billions, not empire building, but enough that he cleared his debts and had breathing room. Lena was there when the news broke, in his tiny apartment, watching him stare at his phone in disbelief. It worked, he said. We actually did it. You did it. No, he pulled her close. I couldn't have survived the last 6 months without you. The rebuilding, the doubt, you kept me sane. That's what love does. Julian pulled back, looked at her with eyes that held the world. Say that again. What? You said love. Lena's heart raced. They'd been careful with the word, dating but not defining, together but not promising. But watching Julian now, This man who'd lost everything and rebuilt himself into someone real, Lena knew. "I love you," she said clearly. "Not the billionaire, not the media mogul, just you. The man who takes the subway and splits diner checks and talks about books at 2 a.m. Julian's smile could have lit the city. "I love you too, have since that night on the balcony. I was just too stupid to recognize it." "You weren't stupid, you were learning. And now you've learned." She kissed him soft, sure. "So what happens next?" Julian pulled back, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a ring. Not the massive diamond he'd given Evelyn, something simpler, more meaningful. "I bought this 2 months ago," he said. "Been carrying it around waiting for the right moment, but there's never going to be a perfect moment, just real ones." "Julian, I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow or even this year, but I'm asking you to build a life with me, a real one, where we choose each other every day, where wealth isn't the measure of worth." His voice cracked. "Where the woman I love isn't the impressive choice or the easy choice, but the right choice, the only choice." Tears streamed down Lena's face. "Yes. Yes. Yes to all of it, the life, the choice, the future." She held out her hand. "Yes to you." Julian slipped the ring on her finger. And for the first time since that night on the balcony, everything felt perfectly, completely right. They got married a year later. Small ceremony, close friends. Evelyn came, newly humbled, working on rebuilding her own character. She hugged Lena before the ceremony. "You were right," she said, "about everything. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry, too, that it took losing Julian for you to find yourself." "I didn't lose him, I never really had him." Evelyn smiled. "But you do, and I'm glad." The wedding was perfect in its imperfection. Lena's dress was off the rack. Julian's suit was borrowed. The venue was a community center in Brooklyn. But when they exchanged vows, promising to choose each other in poverty and wealth, in shadows and spotlight, in all the real moments that made a life, it was the most honest moment of either of their lives. "I choose you," Julian said, "not because you were available, not because you stayed, but because you're the person who saw me when I was invisible, who loved me when I was broken, who taught me that worth isn't measured in billions." "I choose you," Lena replied, "not because you're successful, not because you're wealthy, but because you learned that love is built in silence, in sacrifice, in showing up when there's nothing to gain." They kissed, and the room, filled with people who'd watched them rebuild from rubble, erupted. 5 years later, Julian's company had grown, not to empire status, but to sustainable success. They had a house in Brooklyn, 2 kids, a life built on honesty instead of image. And every year on their anniversary, Julian took Lena back to that balcony. The one where they'd first talked, where he'd first felt seen. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked one night. "Being with me when I had nothing?" "Never, that's when I got the real you. And if I'd stayed a billionaire, if I'd never lost everything." Lena thought about it. "Then you probably would have married Evelyn, and I would have spent my life wondering what if. Would you have been okay with that?" "Eventually, but I wouldn't have been happy." She leaned into him. "The loss was the best thing that happened to us." "How do you figure?" "Because it forced you to choose, not based on image or expectation, but on who you actually wanted beside you when everything fell apart." Julian kissed her temple. "And I chose you." "You chose me. Best decision I ever made." And as they stood on that balcony, the place where everything had started, Lena knew. She hadn't been the second choice. She'd been the right choice all along. It just took Julian losing everything to see it. And in the end, that made their love stronger than any fortune could buy. Because real love isn't built on what you have. It's built on who you are when you have nothing. And who chooses to stay anyway. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I truly appreciate you for spending your time here. It means a lot more than you know. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. Your support helps the channel grow and brings more stories like this your way. Thank you for being here. More amazing stories are coming, don't miss them.